What is your ancient future archetype? Archeo Futura. Let's go, let's go, let's go to the depth of the story. Are you willing? Do you dare? Into the depth. What story do our ancient ancestor artists want us to know? Let the brush and pen guide the way inside. Finding your flow, it's time. What if there is an ancient access to finding your flow? What if I told you we found the key? Where will your story take you? No one can be sure, but we're all showing up for the ride. Each one of us is here to find our own form. Who are we, and what are we doing here? What world will you create with brush and pen and community? Finding your place in space is a birthright. It's a journey. It's an invitation. An invitation to ask yourself, what is your identity? Do you know? Do you care? Will you shape it? Are you open to discovering your true colors? Revealing your own myth means you need to show up at the intersection of space and time and place. What, dear one, is your legend? Are you open to setting yourself free? What myth will you release? Living your self-expression is yours to choose. Will you? What is the image of the future held within your heart? Let's find out together. Shall we? Come to the adventure. Welcome to this episode of Girls Gone Wild. We're so glad to have you. Thanks for showing up. I'm here at Musea with these two troublemakers right here. Who's here?
Sumaiyah. Mac.
And I'm Shiloh, Sophia, and we are here to speak to you about legend and about being legendary and the distinction between a story that you tell on yourself or that ends up being a default that you find yourself being a victim of or something you just got stuck with, and how you work with that so that it can become legendary. Right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's start with you, troublemaker one. What are some of your earliest revelations about legend? Because Stella Mac has been doing legend with us since the very first legend in 2008, I think. That was all in person, and our art matriarchs were there, and it was gave rise to Color of Woman and so many other things. So what are some of your earliest inklings about legend in your awareness?
Well, I have been on a spiritual journey most of my life, so I've always been looking inside, inwardly, to see how to shift and change things, right? I thought I was doing really well. And then legend came to be.
Oh.
And it was number one, I was terrified about painting.
Right.
So it changed everything for me.
Mm.
It shifted everything because while you're painting and we write and paint at the same time, right? So we're looking at our story from a different perspective. We're using creativity to delve in, which I hadn't done before. It was mostly writing. And things came up that I didn't even know existed in my unconscious.
Right.
You know, and like I said, I'd gone deep and wanted to look at my subconscious, but things just didn't come because I was looking at it still from my brain, from my mind, right? And with legend, it's about your heart and your soul and your identity and your voice. Because when you and I first met, that was one of the things that was so common to both of us, is wanting the women that we were working with to access their own voice. Right. And that's been work that I had done before working with you and working with Legend. And this shifted everything and allowed me to grow so quickly and learn so quickly and access my voice from a different perspective. Because when I came to you, I was coming from a corporate background, right? And disliking that corporate background and the way that women were treated, and not realizing I still carried that because it's a patterning, right? And so it's unfolding those stories that we told ourselves or the external world has been telling us, and realizing Legend made me realize that's not my voice.
Powerful. So then you started using your voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you became Stella Mac.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's my legendary name, Stella Mac.
Thank you for sharing that. And you also had only painted maybe one time.
Yes.
So it's not about having talent.
Yes.
People think they come to Legend if you want to paint a painting, but painting is just the way we get there.
Yes.
Because it's the hard part. Actually, it's hard to stand at canvas and do this deep work, but then something else starts to happen. How about you? When did you do your first Legend?
Let's see, I did Color Woman in 2013, so it was probably 2012, yes. And for me, Legend gave me my sovereignty. Yes, it did, because, you know, the get married, have children, husband is head of household, and when I was growing up, I'm the youngest of 6 children, and whenever I went out, my sister that's 2 years older than me had to go with me, or if she went out, I had to go with her. So I was very used to being a duality, having someone with me, some support or something else other than myself. And then I did Legend, and I'm like, oh, I am my own person. I'm not a person that is identified by my sister or by my husband. You know, it is just me, and this is who I am. And that's when I learned that I'm also unapologetically Black. You know, and that part of me came out, and I wasn't afraid of my Blackness anymore. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
That is so beautiful.
Legend is legendary. It is.
It is, for sure.
Thank you both for sharing that. I feel like, you know, even though I'm one of the teachers in it, and you all are too, that it changes my life every time. And it really, the first time that I did it, it was like coming home. And there were like things that I had felt. But as long as things are somatic and intellectual, if you don't bring it into form, it's sometimes hard to believe that you did it. And we're all writers and journalers, and so we do a lot of that. But it also is like on some journal page somewhere, like there's not a big image that goes with it.
Right.
And so for me, being able to give form to these energies and also to listen at the canvas for the storyline which began to emerge about what I cared about on the planet. And the storyline from that very first Legend is still operating within me today. And it's as if each one is the same being, but an evolution, like she's growing up. So some people do legend every year because it's almost like a maintenance thing,
Yes.
right? Like because you're like come in at a new level.
Yeah, it's like my friend used to say, her and her husband used to go to therapy once a year for maintenance. I was like, paint legend. He'll stay married longer. Or not.
And you discover something new about yourself every year. You're
Yes.
always changing. Every day you're changing. You're becoming somebody different or something different. More of you is starting to emerge, and legend just helps bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
does.
absolutely.
And every year it's different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the stories that I love to tell is when I first painted with Shiloh, and I hadn't painted. I've always admired artists and always, but never did it myself. And I did a one-on-one at Shiloh's gallery. She was a rock star, so I barely spoke a word. And I was so happy with my painting because it was so pretty. And Shiloh says, okay, are you ready to go deeper? I'm like, deeper? And I'm like, but it's so pretty. And you said, do you want pretty or do you want deeper? I said, I want pretty.
I remember that moment
Yes.
very clearly.
And then at Shiloh, so I went deeper. And was my painting as pretty as it was? No. But it was a remarkable painting to me from what came up, because going deeper, and that's the joy for me of legend, right? Is that you're in your creativity, it's like a meditation. It's like Sue used to say, you just follow your brush, right? The tip of your brush. And all this amazing stuff comes out.
Mm-hmm. And that's a part of it, is like giving yourself an opportunity to be expressed, because we're carrying so much information sort of in our inner world, and it can feel trapped and coiled and maybe never come out. And so people are really repressed and have internalized different forms of oppression, and we don't really know what to do about it. And there's all kinds of therapies and things, but if people aren't self-expressing, I don't know that stuff gets out.
Right.
And it could be any form of self-expression, true self-expression. But I think of painting and writing and theater and song different than some other arts, because it has to be a self-expression where you're capable of learning something about yourself while you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
But you could do that with gardening and cooking too, right?
Right.
But you would have an intention, and that's where intentional creativity comes in. You would have an intention to think about what you're doing as you're doing it, because that's the metacognitive part. Like you're painting, and as you're painting, you start to have different kinds of thoughts because you're entering into flow state. Your most recent legend painting was just so incredible. What shifted for you when you went through with that one?
For me, it was basically my whole being, because that was at a time in my life where the chaos that had been my life was moving away. And the legend process helped me push the rest of that out and then bring in my ancestral energy and call on my ancestors. That's when I began calling on my ancestors and doing rituals for them, with them, to them, to bring their power into my being. And legend helped me with that, because I was able to express ancestry that I don't even know from reading or learning about it in that painting. It came forth from them, and its power.
Yeah, now that you say that, I can see that in my imagination as I look at the painting and feel that presence of it. I mean, the things that can happen while you're at the canvas are so extraordinarily different, because imagine that you're bringing something from your inner world and expressing it in the outer world on that 2D plane, but you're looking at it, and the information from the painting is coming through your eyes and to your brain and starting a circuit that starts to change things. And so the revelatory quality is almost ritualistic.
Yes.
Right?
And sometimes it's really difficult to explain it to people, right? Like
No.
about bringing it out and putting it on a canvas and listening to your canvas. You're
Right.
like, how does that happen? It just is magic.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the, chop wood, carry water aspect
Mhm.
of personal development is you are standing there for hours on end over several weeks or months, and you're being with and confronting yourself in a way that most people say they never experienced, no matter what kind of trip they went on before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? People like to joke. They call me, the kids of our community call me the art teacher at Hogwarts. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty apropos.
Someone walked into the gallery just yesterday and was like, introduced me. She says, "This is my art teacher. She's magic." No, really, magic. You can't imagine what will happen.
That's true.
I was like, okay. So when you think of people coming in, maybe people who have never taken legend before, feel like they're not a painter, feel like they've done enough work, what would you say to someone who is just considering it?
The first thing I would say is you do not have to know how to paint.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I painted with you in Healdsburg, when you were in Healdsburg, and you're standing behind me saying, add the lights and add the darks, and in my head I'm saying, what is this woman talking about? But at the end of the process, I ended up with what I felt was a beautiful painting, especially since I had never painted before in my life, but it wasn't even the end product.
Right.
That
Exactly.
was the gift.
Mhm.
The gift was the process.
Yes.
And going through that and getting out of myself what needed to be released and getting it into that canvas with that paint and just letting go and letting myself flow with the paint.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to know how to paint. If you end up with just marks on your canvas, that is all you need.
That's right.
Because it's the process and not the end product.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank
And
you.
we've worked with tens of thousands of people around this process, and we get the same response, right? It's changed their lives, it's changed our lives, right? And that, for me, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and it's a gift to ourselves, right? That we're giving to us to work through whatever we need to work through. And sometimes people will say, well, I don't really have anything to work through, or people that have been, we've had people who are shamans, right, that are like, oh my God,
Right.
I got stuff here, right? I've been doing this for 30 years and I've still gotten something from it, right? And I think that it's being, honoring ourselves to do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because to take responsibility for your own story, I mean, to me, until you do that, nothing else is clear.
Mm-hmm.
Because as long as you're still subject to a version of yourself that you've been creating and that other people have been enforcing and overlaying on you, whether that's family, culture, tradition, whatever it is, all these factors have been shaping you. And we were too young to notice how shaped we were becoming. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait, what? I mean, that's what we talk about, like the who am I sentence. We wouldn't be asking that so much if we were developing as we went along, because we'd be at cause. Like, we were pretty old before we figured out that we could actually shift our story.
Right.
But the problem is, like, everybody wants to change the story if it isn't working, right? But people don't know how.
Right.
Why is change so hard? And so for us with Legend, it's an opportunity to be curatorial with your identity, that you're not just stuck with who you ended up being, that you actually can cause impact and make change and also sort of update your identity. To me, it's like, it's an identity update. It's like a refresh. It's like a chosen evolution. There I am. And I also sometimes use it for manifestation of things I want to bring in that I don't know how to bring in, or I'm not sure if I should bring in. And I start painting around it. And then I'm in it. And then I'm into that intuitive space. There's also a way the painting has oracle like
Yes.
qualities for you, because you're there at the canvas and things are just coming out. You're just like, whoa, what was that?
And we're also in legend writing as well, right? So you're looking at the stories that you have been living into that aren't your stories. Like what you were just saying about the external world that is putting those stories on us, and that it's happened when we're young, so we don't even recognize that that isn't our voice, that isn't our story, right? It's somebody else's. And creating our own narrative. And I love how you talk, Shiloh, about identity, because legend is about creating the identity that's truly us. Would you talk a little bit about how when we are born, that's who we are, right? We have our own soul imprint. We have our own being.
Well, I feel like that sometimes goes into a little bit of a spiritual framework, right? Because we all think differently about how we come in. But all you have to do is ask a mom when their little kid is doing some stuff. You're like, wow, what's happening? And they will say, they just came in that way, right?
Yeah.
They just came in as they are, and they develop their personality. And yeah, they're being shaped, but they have an essence. Did you notice that with your sons? Like, they were just as they are.
They are, and they, right to this day, they are as they are. They are who they are, and I love it.
Yeah.
I do. I love that society and the things that are imprinted on us without us out requesting
Right.
has not affected who they are as people. So.
Yeah, so to that point, we have a theory around here that we come in with certain information, and that we can either live out that information, what we call revealing, or not. And if people aren't self-expressed, they generally don't live it out, and they often feel sort of subject to who they ended up being, and sort of like they don't have any measure of control over shifting that. But that isn't our experience, because we become conscious curators of what we came in with. But most people don't even know that they come in with stuff. I had the pleasure of interviewing Alice Walker the other day, and I asked her this question, like, did you come in with? And she said that her mom said that she would find her out riding with a stick in the dirt, right? And you see children prodigies, right, who are just like singing opera when they're 4, right? You're like, okay, how did that person learn the piano or whatever it is? So like, we know that there's something. We don't know what it is.
And a lot of times those things are what we get criticized for when we're younger, right? Stop doing that.
Unless you're a crazy genius all of a sudden and can sing something amazing. But it's like, what would happen if we could have more awareness that as the child is developing, that they are who they are, and part of our job is to not have them be disconnected from who they are by the stuff we put on them. But that doesn't happen a lot, and so we find ourselves as adults and have that potential midlife crisis thing. Around here, we're like, midlife breakthrough instead of breakdown, because you don't have to just be a victim of who you ended up being, because you get to be a part of it. But the essence of you that you came in with, where does that get to live out? Where does that get to be expressed? And legend has this playful element too, where your character in your painting is like a badass. It's not like you in your day-to-day life, right? It's a part of you. It's a legendary part of you. If you were a whole mythology, it's that, right? So you sort of allow your imagination to expand yourself into this mythical archetypal character. And through that, you learn about yourself and learn about ways that you already always were within yourself that you want to cultivate. And then sometimes there's things that we don't want to bring forward anymore. A way that we've been carrying struggle, for example, or, I feel like I've carried like a battle a lot. And so in my paintings, I try to work with unhooking that battle, which is that battle is about wanting to liberate, right? But I can be more about liberation energy than about battle energy if I choose.
Right.
My body responds to liberate energy different than battle energy. But if I don't know that I have the choice to move from battle to liberate, I'm just going to be in the default of the battle, which I was for most of my life.
And choice is another word that we use a lot in legend, right? And the thing that I love what you said is about personality is very different from identity, right? The personality is what we develop a lot of times for survival purposes, right? It's not who we truly, the essence of who we are.
Right. So breaking out the defaults and moving into co-creativeness. Anything else you want to share with our guests?
Come on over. Have fun. Give yourself this gift. It's
amazing.
It's life-changing. It really is. Even the because I think each legend, I just go deeper. It's not like we stop evolving, right? We're continuing to evolve. We're going to just evolve for however long we believe we're going to be here, or if we believe in after, or whatever that is, right? So it's what we said earlier, right? It just brings out the stuff that your being and your soul is willing and wants to come out on the canvas and in the writing and in your body.
Well, thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in. So great to have you. Much love.